Mahalo Mike, Koutou, everyone, welcome. I have an apology from Steve, and I think that would be about that. Is there any other apologies?
Sorry, Your Worship, Steve's not actually a member of the committee.
Is he not?
Attendance.
That. Do we have any apologies? If not,
He's not a member of the committee.
So Sharon's just got something to say just before we go live. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. So I apologise, I forgot to put the work plan and the new work plan and the agenda, so I put one on your desk. You'll also see on your desk a conflict of interest register that we have to do twice a year for audit, and your form to fill out to get your communication allowance paid out now the new Remuneration Authority things come through. And I just have a shout out to Councillor Kennedy.
What?
Yes, already got a conflict of interest register back. So just like that.
Teachers' pay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right, okay, team, thank you. So has anyone got any late items or urgent business? Any further declarations to the form that we're going to fill out? No public forum, so we will go to agenda item number 1. Memory was. I'm happy to move them as a true and correct record. Is someone prepared to second them? Councillor Herbert, any discussion? If not, all those in favour?
Aye.
Those against. Move on to item number 2, Christina's report. Who's doing that?
Through you, Your Worship, Christina's actually unwell today, and so I've had a bit of a look through it. I think it's pretty straightforward, so I would just take it as read and take any comments or questions back to Christina for you should you wish.
Questions, team? No questions, so there's no comments, nothing from it. Councillor McAdam.
I've got to find where I was looking at it. Looking at it last night, there was a comment on that. Scroll down the page. I think I marked it. How long have I got? There was a comment on redundancy in capacity, always holding redundancy in capacity. And I was just wondering whether that meant, and hoping it didn't mean redundancy in that somebody's always got a bit of slack to him.
No, through you, Your Worship. It gets used quite often at council to talk about making sure we have a succession plan and things in place to make sure that we can go about our business. My team has a redundancy plan in that if I can't come tomorrow, my team can pick up what I do and knows how to work with the systems I use.
So it's through you. We're mentioning about it's like training and all that sort of stuff.
It's enabling.
And we do, from an IT perspective, redundancy is we have is AJ still here? No, we've got a new Starlink connection was installed recently in case our fibre goes down. We previously had a 5G cellular connection that was already adequate to operate anything we do. So there's a backup system, for example, for our fibre with a Starlink system now. So
Yeah, there was just a comment around staffing being mentioned there too, and I was sort of hoping
it's more training and knowledge of what other people do. So if there's someone else who can do payroll if the payroll person goes down. We've got an admin person two admin people might be trained in the cemetery area, but that's not their main job, but they know how to do that if someone's away.
And having guides on how to do what you do. It's on the first point, I think, the one you're referring to. It says document keyword processes and ensure redundancy. So it's to document what you do and ensure that somebody else can pick it up should you not be able to.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that you're working at 115%.
Any further questions, Tom? Someone prepared to move the recommendation, please? Councillor Kennedy, seconded Councillor Finch. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Off to Sharon's report. Sharon. Oh, so it gets replaced by this one?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Only points to note really is that we've had to move, the timing of this meeting, we didn't have our quarterly investment and borrowing reports through yet, so we couldn't include them. And the conflict of interest one we've moved out. The timing of the meetings, we've now given you the forms for that, so hopefully we can report on that next time. And the audit management report and recommendation to council long-term plan have moved into a council meeting. Yeah, so that's, other than that, I'll just read.
I've got questions on that, but they'll come further on. Any questions, team, specifically on this? If not, is someone happy to move? Thank you, Councillor
Receive the
Rowell.
updated report. The work plan report.
Seconder, please. Councillor Herbert, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Trey. I saw Trey. Well, welcome, Trey. Floor's yours.
Kia ora everybody.
Sure.
For the financial monitoring report, I'm happy to take it as read, answer any questions.
Questions for Trey, please? I've got a few if I could. So on page 23, halfway down, you'll see how we've got the actuals and the budgets. And there's a few on the wobble, shall we say. Now that we're entering the new financial year, and primarily around Crown Street, we know the costs a bit more. We're not going to get actuals to budget blowouts like this anymore, are we? Because we know what it's going to cost. It'll count. It's in our budgets. Consequently, they should run true.
We would be expecting to not do that, as that was part of the LTP process, was put your budgets in line with what you're expecting to actually spend. So we've taken that into account with the LTP. So we don't expect there to be anything like that.
So employer benefits, and sorry, I'm not having a go at, but specifically unemployment benefits, which is 70% down that page. We budgeted 9 million and spent 12.
Yes.
How do we, on something that's, please explain your benefits, how could we have a 25% blowout?
Generally, most of that is from the new Three Waters team. There's $2.3 million of Three Waters wages that weren't budgeted for that is in there.
So when you say benefit, it's wages.
It's wages,
not
KiwiSaver, that type of thing.
Yeah, and then the road in one above it, road and repairs and maintenance is also
Yes.
sort of a substantial one. Yeah.
So I've talked to Chris Bopp about that, and it's generally because what is set in this budget isn't necessarily what the NZTA budget is. So the NZTA budget is like a moving target, and so we've had some carry forwards in that. So talking to him, we've underspent what we have budgeted with the NZTA.
Right.
So it's mostly just because, it's a moving target with some carry forwards in there.
So sorry to clarify, it's probably underspent over the 3-year period. So it's the 3-year National Land Transport Program, so we may not have quite pulled all of those carry forwards through. Because the problem we do have is if we pull them forward, we rate for them again. So we need to be careful how we do that if it's been a previous budgets in the previous 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Further questions, Tim? John, Councillor
Just following on from that, it's sort of something that's always kind of never sat that well with me. So we've known all along, from 1st of July last year, we were taking over Three Waters, yet we didn't put anything in the budget for the wages.
Through you, Your Worship.
Because the budget's 9 now, so that's,
That's correct, because the budget's actually done before. It was done before we knew any of the costs for Three Waters.
Yeah, so, but it's never sat well with me.
Yeah, it gets adopted right before we take
I
over.
know.
but
I've never
it's-
agreed because it's the same water going in, the same pipes, the same people from the same plants. We should know. It's just never sat well with me. But I've never agreed with that. But anyway.
Was there more hands going up somewhere, did I see? If not, we've got a recommendation back on page 20 something, rather. 22. Someone prepared to move if there's no more questions? Councillor Ludeman, you're moving, seconded by Councillor Finch. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? You're going nowhere, Trey. We're on to the next one.
I'm happy to take it as read, but I'll just make a comment on the median time calcs. So I've talked to Linda and the IT team, and the way they've got it set up, the contractor has their system set up. We can't tap directly into it. So it's a bit of a manual process of, they've got the spreadsheets that take all the information we need, but they need to provide that to IT, and then IT needs to manipulate it to be able to put it into our system. So that will be done around mid-August for the annual report. So we'll have accurate numbers for the annual report. However, going forward, they're looking, Linda's had a meeting with the contractors a few weeks ago to look at an alternative way to have the two systems integrated. So that's not done yet, but there is movements on that. I'm right. But outside of that, I'm happy to take questions.
Questions, team? I haven't got any. Has anyone got any questions? Comprehensive report, right? If there is no questions, thank you for that, Trade. Is anyone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Graham, second by Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. Right, not sure who's Linda and her team, is it? Is everyone coming up? Karen and Daniel? Fair enough, up you come, Daniel.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm here to present the protozoal and bacterial compliance report and willing to take any questions through the chair.
Questions, please, team. Sorry, Councillor Kennedy.
Daniel, I know some people will say, oh, the boil water notice hasn't been there very long. How long does it take to get rid of a boil water notice? Like the Tapanui?
Tapanui is taking some time because we're working through some issues at the plant, and what it was because it was non-compliant with the drinking water quality assurance rules, which are what we use as a judgment of providing safe water. So it's currently just over a month, and we're hoping to have it removed. I'm going to use the word soon, which obviously doesn't have a time frame on it, but it does require improvements at the plant.
Yeah, I was just wondering to tell your local ratepayer, like if something goes wrong like that, you are expected to probably sit on that boil water notice. How many clear testings do we have to go through?
That one is
and the time frame it takes.
Sorry, that one is slightly different because the reason that we've put it on is because of the protozoal barrier wasn't as it should be, because we're relying on filtration, and that has a very low level of turbidity that we have to maintain. And so it's not sampling that's required for that, it's continuous monitoring. So we are sampling for bacteria in the reservoir and in the reticulation and at the treatment plant. And we have had one positive result this week, which we are questioning because of what we had. We had strong levels of residual chlorine in the network and at the treatment plant. So, but we proceeded with that as if it was a proper positive E. coli result. So, but for protozoa, you don't do grab samples.
Thank you.
Further questions, Tim? I've got a few questions, Daniel, and I'll be up front. I'm looking where to go to war. I'm getting mixed messages from Tomato Arawa, and I'm trying to work it out in my head so if you could help. So, looking at the first page, I think, yeah, Greenfield's coming, Greenfield, Waihola, yeah. The one that I can't really see where the cavalry's coming over the horizon is Tapanui. Is Tapanui our next problem child?
It could be,
Yeah.
possibly.
So there's not unidentified, there's work, we're gonna come up with a plan for Tapanui. And we haven't done anything and we haven't spent any money yet. How's that?
Speaking of the cavalry, here comes one.
Your worship, there is something in the long-term plan to put a UV reactor into Tapanui, which will resolve the turbidity issue. And I've just heard today that it's not till year 4. Sorry?
We've already had money to buy one for Tapanui. We
Yes.
bought 2 UV reactors for Tapanui. The first one went to Puarua to deal with an issue there. The second one is going to Lawrence. So we need to buy one and put it in.
Yeah.
That'll assist us to have more robust compliance and not just rely on filtration. So we've already bought 2 for Tapanui, but it was running and compliant and going really well. So we've tried to remove the boil water notices in other areas, and now that's come back to roost with Tapanui with the treatment plant struggling to produce the water that it needs to. For very low levels of turbidity for it to be compliant for filtration, as Daniel mentioned.
Because there's a few, I'll ask one question out of sync. For Waihola, what we meant to be, I can remember we were up in Waihola going forward meeting or something like that, and you're going live in June. It's going to all happen in June. And then it didn't, and I'm thinking, I don't think I've been told why it didn't go live in June, but it was poised and set to go, and I told a particular person up there that's quite effervescent in their Facebook statements. What happened to June?
So we got the commissioning plan from the consultant that put that together, and the ops team weren't happy with some components of that. So we've sent it back to be reviewed, and I believe it was due to be delivered again this week, and we're looking for 1 August as the date, is the latest from the project manager.
So is that when the town, that's a boil water notice, or is
No,
that when the water goes in and then
That's
we
when
have
the
a
water
month
goes in,
of
and then
playing around?
Yeah,
I
and then
think
we've
that
got to
was said
flush,
earlier.
we have to flush, we've got the reservoirs with obviously non-compliant water, so we've got to work through what that process looks like. So there'll be obviously testing before we're happy to lift the boil.
Have we been told?
Did we put an update out?
No, I mean, because in all, we're making commitments out in the public, and then we get told a date, and I can remember, yep, June, I tell you what, we'll be doing it in June, and then it just drifts. And we need to know, because if we walked into that person, if we walk into the same questions in the meeting, you're a liar, you're a cheat, you're a insolent, didn't even know actually, thought it was.
So through you, Your Worship, I think there was some confusion early on between the project manager who was delivering the pipeline, which was part of what's needed to get it going, and then the pump stations and the commissioning and connection of all the pump stations. So I thought we had issued a statement, just clarifying that or updated our regular comms. But so that's the reason why we were talking about June, and the pipeline was finished then. But unfortunately, that's not the only thing that needed to be finished to get the system all up and running. So apologies for that confusion, and if not, we'll make sure it's on there.
Yeah, there's just so many notices coming through. So just a continuation on, when I get to the next one, Tapanui once again seems to be the standout non-performer as we go through. So then you roll it back, and I've been having talks with Alan Pradnell from Matarawa, where he said, there's leniency. You've never come back and talked to us. You've never done a timing sequence, anything. And yet I thought consents triggered projects, which triggered costs, and somewhere along the line there was that stipulation that at no time shall we consider cost. You just do it. What set of rules are you working on to line up the projects and line up and keep them off our back? I'm getting a message wrong here. They're saying that there's latitude. I'm getting here that there isn't, or isn't. So what's your underlying, what's the genesis of, right, we're going to do this project and we're going to do it by 2020?
I guess it'd be fair to say we haven't seen any evidence of latitude, and maybe that's something that is said at the higher echelons of Te Mara Arawai, but certainly at the level that we're dealing with, where they are measuring us, they're getting all the results we get, they go directly to them. They are certainly, Daniel's a frequent contact with the staff there that we deal with, and they If we fail to do something or issue a reminder about a boil, that E. coli, already on a boil notice, E. coli result, if we weren't reminding the public about that, we would be getting pulled up for that.
And in the wider picture, if this town isn't compliant, that's what triggers everything else. And there is no, we can work with you for a couple of years to get this through for your budget. Not for anything else but the budget. The budget's never mentioned as a reason for delay.
We haven't, so I guess for Tapanui, we haven't had any abatements or any notifications or compliance orders served on us. So we haven't had to have that conversation. But if I think about the notification we got about Tuapeka West, which is our only scheme without protozoal barrier, we had a direction like all other councils in New Zealand that came last year in October, telling us that we needed to have a plan for putting in that protection. That plan needed to be funded, and lack of funds was not a reason not to have a plan. The plan was required by the 30th of June. Our plan is obviously greenfield, and we were meant to have that resolved by the 30th of December this year. So we've responded to that notification, seeking an extension because of greenfield.
Could you please get me where they put in writing that a lack of fund is not a reason?
Oh, I've got
delay?
several examples I can show you.
Can you give me every single example?
Yep.
That'd be appreciated. Cheers. Questions? Councillor Finch, followed by Phelps.
Thank you. Every week and sometimes twice a week, we get all the schemes that are on the boil water notice. And it's got to the stage where all the people that are on those schemes are saying, but when is this ever going to end? We sort of need, if we can, something, a timeline, something that we can actually explain and tell them why it keeps happening over and over and over and over again in general English terms, and where the future is going. When are we going to be able to say to how many schemes that are on the boil water notice that yes, this is definitely going to be coming off because we've got this in place, that in place, and that in place, and it's going to make these all become compliant. We need something to go out to the public and explain, because they just look at us like we're a pack of idiots, and this has been going on for, like in some cases, over a year and more with these boil water notices, and they don't see what is happening behind the scenes to try and get us compliant, and that we are actually putting some money at it. We need something out there to be able to say to them, look, in this time frame, we're hoping to have, or we are definitely going to have, because this is going to happen and it's going to trigger that. We need something to be able to go to all those schemes and be able to explain and say, this is going to actually happen. What can we...
Through you, Your Worship, we do actually do that in our comms that we send out each week about the boils. So the ones that are reliant on greenfields all say this is a long-term boil water notice that won't be lifted until the greenfield scheme is commissioned. For the North Bruce scheme, we talk about the Milton to Waihola pipeline when that's commissioned, that we'll be looking to lift it. But there's no time frame on that, and time frames are sometimes you set an expectation and then something happens. Is it April, is it June, is it now going to be August? And then that creates disappointment. So we do say what we're working on. Tapanui we haven't talked about any improvements there, but Lawrence, we've told the community about the UV reactor that's been installed, and we've told them the end of July for that. And that's on track.
That's for the ones that get the boil water notice, but if they're like I am now, it's boil water notice, and you go, nothing's, we're getting it so regularly that it's just like, yes, we know that one, and we know that one. But I think we need something else actually in print in the papers or something somewhere, so that they'll actually see that there is something being done, that we are trying, and it's taking so long to get anything out, like for them to see that there is something happening. You know, there's so much frustration out there, and I can completely understand why, and they just think we're a pack of idiots not doing anything, basically.
Councillor Phelps, followed by Herbert Grant.
Not getting at you, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Just through the chair, can I just ask regarding Tapanui, am I right in saying that all that would take to fix it is that UV reactor? And if so, how much is there a UV reactor and why isn't it done?
The UV reactor would certainly help. It would give us a lot more leeway with turbidity because it's a surface water source. When there's heavy rain, that increases greatly. So having a UV reactor would provide that protozoal barrier that we don't have at the moment. As for how much it would cost and when it would be in, George, would you like to?
Well, we've already bought 2 of them, so we just need to get another one. Like, from memory, it was. I would hate to guess, but it's not hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So,
I just can't understand why isn't it done.
well, we've already bought 2, but we've used them elsewhere to try and lift the boil water notices. So
Is there
we've got to order another one.
Is there a delay in getting them from supply?
No, I wouldn't be able to confirm that. But look, we need to get on and get that because it gives us it was always intended for Tapanui. We've bought 2 of them and reused them elsewhere. So we need to get that one more into Tapanui. And then we've got, it's been relatively good, but at the moment, once we've started to have rain, then the plant hasn't been able to handle it. So that gives us a bit more consistency to be compliant in Tapanui with that UV reactor.
Councillor Herbert, followed by
Thank
Grant.
you. I suppose part of my question carries on from Councillor Phelps' question, but firstly, Your Worship, you talked about Tana Arawai, and I think your question is for them, not for our staff. If there's leniency, we need to get it from them, what there is. We need a breakdown and in writing, because you can't have 2 sets of rules, one they think and one they're enforcing on staff. I think it's a question for them. Carrying on from Councillor Phelps and Councillor Kennedy, so that obviously the Tapanui one's going to go ahead. Just run me through, Jules, or does it need a separate building? Is it a great big thing? Is it a small thing? Is it something you bolt on the wall and walk away, or is it like months and months and a new building?
My understanding is that it is too big to fit in the current plant.
Right, so it's a
But
new
we
building.
need something else, but it could be a container. It doesn't need to be a building. Or a shed, or like a garage kind of thing. But whether there's space at the site,
So as soon
that
as we
would be
know,
one of the considerations.
could you let Councillor Kennedy and I know as soon as there's a time frame or some movement there? Would be much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I should also explain, John, just in discussions when we went to Wellington, we had that time with Tamata Alawa, and they were saying there's latitude. I was going, I've never heard
But
of
if these guys
latitude.
don't know,
But no, what I'm saying is it's now been established that quite clearly they've been told, what is it? Lack of funds is not a reason for delay. And Steve's constantly told me that, hey, you can't use lack of money. I'm now getting it that, hey, we're getting told. Now I go back to Alan and we have a further discussion because the message that he is saying to us and the message that the staff is saying to us, 2 different
that's
messages.
what your question has been. Thank you.
And through you, Your Worship, I'm pretty sure we quoted letters from Tamata Arawai in our submission to the select committee that had those very words in it. So we have received those. Through you, Your Worship, I would also like to point out, I'm not sure if the council saw it about a month ago, but there was an article in the ODT when ECC were reporting on their compliance. They were 40% non-compliant with the new rules. So we're not alone.
Invercargill was second.
Yep. So you can get tripped up by it, but we've taken an approach that if we don't comply with those things, we have a boil water notice. So, but yeah, so it is more difficult than it has been in the past.
The world we live in now, there's going to be, and the amount of treatment plants we've got, there's always going to be one popping about boil water notice. Just going for the regulations we've got. Surely, if you look over the next 10 years, there's always going to be a wee spike and a test somewhere here or there. And as soon as that's happened, we're never going to sit here and go, we're never going to boil water notice. It's all hunky-dory.
I think we can be aiming for that because there's different things we can do.
We're paying for it. Yeah.
Additional reservoir storage, filter to waste, redundant systems. At the moment, most of our systems have one UV reactor. If that goes down, then it's much harder to comply. So in the budgets, there are duplicate UV systems in 3 or 4 years' time. So there's there's things that are in the budgets to make our compliance more reliable, but it is going to add extra cost and it is going to take time to get them all installed.
Councillor Grant.
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair. When Greenfield comes online, will there be a need for that UV reactor in Lawrence?
No.
So then it could then be sent to Tapanui.
Yep, we have identified that as able to be reused as one of the duty standby systems at another plant. We get a second hand. We get a second hand bit of that. That might be for the second unit in Tapanui, because we need a primary unit as well as a standby unit.
And the same thing, the existing UV unit or the old one now that was in Lawrence, we will keep that as a standby for another plant. So it wasn't the right type or level for the Lawrence water supply, but it can be utilised somewhere else as a replacement or a standby.
Okay.
Through you, Mr Chairman, just a comment. We've got these boil water notices on, and obviously the public, it certainly upsets the public, but the water that they're consuming now, that we're consuming, is really the same water that we were consuming from our rural water schemes for the last 35, 40 years, which never had boil water notices on. The amount of treatment they're getting now, the introspection that goes into them is much higher now than it ever was. So I think our public can still be assured that they're still getting good water. Generally, it's just the standards have changed and we're just having to meet those standards.
Further questions, Tim? Councillor Finch.
So you just said the bit for Lawrence, I've forgotten the name of it, wasn't the right one for that water. How did that happen?
Change in standards. Sorry, for you.
Yeah,
It's change in standards. That's a surface water take, which defaults to requiring a 4 log credit UV for treatment. The existing UV was 3 log credits, so it wasn't delivering the right protection for people.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
This week.
I know.
Further, Tim? There are no further questions. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Recommendation back on page 39. Someone prepared to move?
Linda.
Someone put their hand up. Councillor Wheeler, followed by Councillor Graham. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against, thank you. Move on to number 7. Now, Linda, you're going nowhere. Greg, welcome, Greg. Floor's yours.
Great, so I'm just presenting the report and our financials to end of 31 May and happy to take questions. I did add some commentary this time about the chemical costs that had been queried at previous meetings. So we've got the allocations which are ready to be made back against the schemes and the urban water supplies. So that will regularise. So it doesn't mean more money, it just means moving the deck chairs. Any other questions? No big changes really, I'd say, overall.
Questions, Tim?
Just like to say it was good to have all the expenditure put down there so that you could actually go through that. Thank you, track it.
Just as I read it, am I reading it right that around the RETIC contract is where we've had our major exposure to cost overruns? Because that's sort of RETIC contract, so why? And staffing. Is there any real reason why that one caught us out and no one knows why?
Sorry, through you, Your Worship. I don't think it's cost overruns. We're actually paying the cost of the repairs that are being done. So it's a cost plus model. So if they're going out and doing repairs, we're paying for the repairs that they're doing. Yes, so we haven't budgeted enough to do that level of repairs.
Yeah, but how can, we've been doing this for generations, and now we've got all this extra stuff to do because it's got non-routine expenditure also over budget by 2.7 million, including costs for reticulation contracts. We've always done that. How do we, we've done it for 50 years or something and then poof, 2.7 million. How do we get?
Well, we do know that under our previous contract, lots of repairs weren't being done. Well, they weren't being done anywhere close to contract timeframes as well. So, but yeah, it's certainly something that we need to keep an eye on, and we need to get our new contract lined up, or however we're going to deliver them into the future in terms of that.
And then my apologies, somewhere on page 51 or 52, I wrote down the notes. Are we anticipating to use as many consultants this year as we did last year? Because somewhere it was enough to trigger me, and I can't find it right now.
Yeah, we have used a lot of consultants, but there's definitely we're cutting down on that. We've probably got one main consultant now that we're using, and another one on occasion.
So 1.6 million last year. I'm for, what do you think it might be in the following 12 months?
It'll be much less than that.
Much less. That's a good answer.
Definitely, because we've had Morrison Lowe giving advice and all that. Those costs are all in there as well. So there's all sorts of other things.
So as we set up the whole new system, as I saw it, every time there was a gap in the traffic, we'd fill it with a consultant. We got by, but now we're fully staffed. So consequently, if we're fully staffed, we virtually eliminated the need for them to be filling in the
Apart from
holes.
some technical expertise that isn't at the level that
Right, and that's always going to be there. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Cheers. Simon.
Yeah, just on back to those reticulation contracts. Why over a year down the track are we still? Why is it taking so long to get locked down?
So we're currently waiting for the back-to-back agreements to be signed with the subcontractors to our lead contractor. That's to protect the local contractors. My understanding is that they're very close on that. The contract itself has been agreed. It's been to legal review, and I'm waiting on their letter to say that the level of review they've done. So we've kind of got those details. We're still waiting to see some of the costing information. We've got the Isaac's costs. We're waiting for the subcontractor costs as well, so we have full visibility. And that's the piece that seems to be sticking at the moment.
And so how long is there a time frame you're looking to sign them up?
The new date is the 1st of August 2024.
Yeah,
but that's very close.
How long though?
Oh, it's a 3 + 1 + 1.
Yeah.
4 + 1 + 1. Yeah, it's 3 or 4 + 1 + 1.
Any further questions, team? If not, thank you. Any discussion? Anyone want to do the recommendation on page 47? Councillor Ludeman, seconded by Councillor Finch. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Over to Sharon's report on page 53.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just take this one as read because there's been no change since last time, and we're about to launch into our next round of audits. Starting to prepare the report for that now.
Questions, team? One from me, and I know it's a pretty long one, but I'll ask it anyway and pretend that it's involved. In light of conversations around the HOT review, you know how we've gone out to the public indicating a 14% rate rise? Is there a chance that that's going to fundamentally change?
Through you, Your Worship, we don't know what they're coming back with until later.
Right, so there's no one.
We don't know what the OAG have asked them. We've had a little bit of a heads up, but it was more around extra KPIs being put in. What else?
Tidying up information,
Yeah,
things like that.
explanations around why this happened. We haven't had any indication that we've got to make any fundamental changes.
But we've been meeting with our auditor through Your Worship. We've seen fundamentally where we're at the process. That can't significantly change. That's what's been agreed by council.
Yeah, it's also that there is a initial expectation from a community that's hyper analysing that it is going to be 14 point. If it changed to a 15 or a 16, we need to know. But ask the question. That's fine. We're still sitting open. Questions, team. Everyone's getting off too light. No questions, who's gonna move it?
I'm happy to move it.
Move councillor Payne, second, and was that councillor Wheeler? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Greg, you're back up here.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, for the Nico investment portfolio, so we had gains of 116k for May and 194k for June. So that, as well as the 164k of distributions reinvested in June, which we receive quarterly. So that's resulted in a year-to-date cumulative return of investment of -0.44%. So that includes that loss we had from April. So it's slowly coming back up. In terms of the borrowings, so we had an additional 4 million in May and 8 million in June borrowed. We had quite a few large contracts coming in towards the end of the financial year. So that was the main reason for that. So that brings our closing balance of our borrowings as at 30 June to 118.8 million. We also had the Westpac multi-option credit line of 3 million drawn as at 30 June, but that was repaid on the 1st of July. And just one other thing to note, that the graphs and tables are still, the prior quarters, we didn't have the updated to end of June ones in time for the agenda, but we'll include those next time. So, yeah, happy to take any questions.
Questions for Greg? Councillor Wheeler.
I'm just presuming through you, Mr. Chairman, that the arrow on the debt balance should actually be red.
Yes, apologies, yes, that should have been, yep, yes, it's now over that, yes, I'll correct that.
Greg, I must have had I don't know, hyper focus. On page 65, when I was looking down through, trying to get a hang of when the borrowings and what have you, and I noticed that on the first column, you've got LGFA, FRN, LGFA CP, and LGFA FRB. I thought, what's CP, FRB, and FRN? I don't actually know. What is it?
Through your worship, FRN is fixed rate note, CP, commercial paper.
Right. So does it mean anything? It's just money.
It's just, it's just.
I don't have to worry. There's nothing that's, you should have realised that meant that.
It's how Miles, our the person who helped our advisor,
Mhm.
it's how he suggests we should borrow each time we borrow. What kind of, and it's how we stay within those bands on that graph.
Okay, and then the next one was, as we're coming to the end of the financial year, we had sort of, how much is the debt going to be? It's going to be 112. Then it changed, now it's going to go up a bit. Then when you look at the two, the 2022 and the 2023, if you add up the two lots of debt, that adds up to 107,756,000. And yet you said the end of June we were at 118. At the end of the financial year, how much debt do we actually have? I can't. There's different.
It's the 118.
Well, how come? How's that not shown in the 69,910 plus 37,846? It's 107,756. And that was at the end of.
So what page?
Page 67.
So that was just the end of the prior financial years as a comparison. So that's totally separate. So it's 30 June 23 and 30 June 22.
I was thinking it was the year behind. Well, we certainly borrowed, if they borrowed, so that's that ended.
No, so we had $37 million at the end of 2022. We had $69 million at the end of 2023. We've got 118 at the end of the current last financial year.
So we borrowed 60 this year and thereabout. Right.
Yes.
I was adding them up. Okay. So at the end of June, weren't we telling people during the consultation that we're going to end the year at 112? Is that right?
Through your worship, that was correct. The reason we borrowed the extra right at the end of the year is because there's a funny thing once a year with NZTA where you have to pay all your contracts early for the end of June, like by the 1st of July. So, and you've got to do your final claim for the year by like the 5th of July. And then you have to do they check all that, and there could be a separate one we're a bit later, but it's all got to be done before the 10th. So we didn't have any income for that, and we've got like, I think, how much is the claim trade
4.2 mil.
coming back from NZTA
5 mil GST.
from that last claim? So it was just like, it was a timing issue about how we.
So we're going to pay it out, take it from debt, then we're going to get quite a bit of it back, and then that will go into the general reserve, and instead of borrowing through that money and then done. Simon.
And didn't we also pull forward some of that greenfield debt into the end of last financial year too? Didn't we?
Extra 2 million.
John.
Thank you. So my question is, a couple of questions on page 65, we've got a breakdown of borrowings there. The very top one says it's got a maturity date of 16th of May 24. Has that been refixed, or why is that still in there? Or?
Through your worship, Trey will be.
That one should be August, sorry, that was my fault.
So my next,
Mistake.
so that's, yeah, supposed to be August.
It'll be August this year.
My next question is it seems the maturity dates are either in April or May, all the way down there. Is that a timing strategy of ours? Is that just coincidence, or because every one of those coming forward over to 2030 is either April or May?
Through your worship, that's a really good question. That would be, Miles O'Connor tells us what to borrow for how long. And so that'll just be how they land at this time of the year, because some of them go for 3 months straight, aren't they? Some for 6 months.
Yep.
Some for 5 years. They're all different. Like we might roll one for 90 days, but at this time of the year, it's always going to show as around there. But when we look at this in 6 months, it might say August and September. And there might be some May ones in there as well. If there
So one year fixed for the 15th of April 2027, that might actually change. Is that what you're saying?
No, that one will stay there. But then when we get to April 27, Miles will say, do it for 5 years or do it for 3 months. Or
So is it just the fact that these have all lined up? Is that just coincidence, or? I've never seen one like that. It's either 2 months out of a 12-month year that have all lined up, all from 2024, 2025 to 2030, but they're all lined up the whole way down.
yes. Yeah. It will be the time of the year and the interest rates and how Miles has advised us to do it. We have quite a lot that he tends to roll over, and Trey will correct me if I'm wrong here. He tends to roll over at the moment for 90 days because of the interest rate being that we're a bit higher, and as long as we can stay within our graph lines, and then when they drop down to the beautiful 0.78s like we had and 0.2s that are going to roll off, then it'll go out further.
Any further questions, team? Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. We've got the historical rates we're paying there, June 23 and June 24. Your borrowings are outstanding those days. But could we have as well just the rates that for borrowing that LGFA, what their rates are at the time when when we get these reports, just to know, so we can see the trends, not actually what we've borrowed, but just the various rates, the different periods and such like.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, I think that comes out in the quarterly report as well, which we didn't have this time in time. But we get them once a month. I think we get an email about that. Weekly. Oh my gosh, weekly.
So
yeah, so we can absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that a great sort of show?
So get an idea.
Stand up.
Can I, because I double checked, I don't want to harp on about it, but it's not making sense in my mind. If we go back to page 67 on the borrowings, if you add up that line, it adds up to 37, then you go to what we borrowed there, you add up all them, it goes to 69. And on my brain, why aren't we adding those?
It's already in there.
Oh, so those ones, right, okay.
Yeah.
As you look at it, because you've got the heading, borrowings June 2022, borrowings June 2023.
Total borrowing.
But they've gone on there, right? Questions, team? If there are none, you're off the hook, Greg. Oh, no, you're off the hook. Radio, is someone prepared to move recommendation somewhere there.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Moved by John, seconded by Bruce. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Sorry, councillor Bolwell, yeah, and
I moved it.
and councillor Herbert. So just moving on, I should have asked you prior to this, I've looked at what we're doing in public excluded. If no one's got any questions, right? If you look what we're doing, I don't really see the need to go into non-public, but if anyone wants to scrutinise and have questions, we will. So, in light of that, I'm going to roll it, that we just don't go into non-public, we just take it as an open, just as long as no one has intense scrutiny. Are you going to have intense scrutiny?
No, I was just going to ask a question.
No, hold on, we'll have to go into non-public then. Sorry, it was just to bring it forward by 6 weeks. So we've got 4 recommendations there.
Happy to move to go.
We're now going to go into non-public, yeah.
Happy to move you.